Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here on this beautiful Sunday morning. I am delighted to be back from holiday and to be here with you again on this beautiful Sunday morning where we are in a safe space, really focused on creating love and compassion and healing for ourselves and our families. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And this morning, I am so delighted to have a very special guest with us, Orma Smith. Orma Smith is looking beautiful this morning, is a therapist, educator, and leader, and has been working over 20 years in the field of education, serving as a teacher, a counselor, and administrator. Her mission is to ensure that all children and families have access to high quality education and resources to facilitate positive life choices. Orma's educational background includes a bachelor's degree in economics and business administration from Kalamazoo College and a master's degree in counseling from the University of Detroit Mercy. Currently, Orma serves as a mental health counselor at Pathways to Christian Counseling Center, where in this role, she combines her passion for healing and educating by helping her clients learn how to live healthier lives, both emotionally and physically and spiritually. She is founder and owner of Orma Smith Consulting, LLC, offering emotional and behavioral health consulting services for schools, places of worship, community groups, businesses, and more. She worships at Embassy Covenant Church International, where she serves as an education team leader, a guest services team member, an intercessor, and a minister. Orma believes that everyone is gifted, and her life's purpose is to be help to as many people as possible so that they can realize their reason for being. Her personal motto is, quote, "Be light." And she desires to bring joy, peace, and enlightenment into the lives of all who cross her path. Her co-authored book entitled Just Understand My Perspective, addressing situations that drive people to the edge. Oh, and even this morning, I have been there and working through it. Serves to further her mission to promote positive change in the lives of others. And so, Orma Smith, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We're delighted to have you. So happy you're here. Thank you to Tiara for introducing us. And this morning, Orma is going to share her perspective on changing pain to purpose and overcoming trauma to testimony. And so I am going to turn it over to Orma C. Smith to share her story and her journey with us. And again, thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And my first question is to please share with us your background and what brought you to us this morning. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
So as you mentioned, my background, I started off in education as a classroom teacher, moved into administration, into school counseling, and just knew that I've always been a good listener, always had a heart for people, a heart for helping people. And so going into mental health counseling was a natural transition. So my master's program was dual in school counseling and mental health counseling. So I do have licenses in both. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed school counselor, and I use both of them actively right now. And I love being able to do that, because I just love to help people. That's a part of who I am. And I'll get into more of that as I tell my story. And so as of right now, I am working as part-time as a therapist, but I also go into schools and businesses working in behavioral health, emotional health, but I also do college planning, helping young people understand, and I say college, but really post-secondary, because some of our students are not going directly into college. Some of them are going into trade school. Some of them are going to work or to start entrepreneurship, which is something I've had to really hone in on, helping them understand what that path looks like. So that's who I am from a career perspective. I am a wife and a mother. I have two young daughters, 17 and 13. My oldest is going to college in a week and a half. So I'm getting ready for that phase of my life and working with her. And I am blessed and excited to be here today to be able to share a portion of my story, to be able to share how my life, and you said something I love, from pain to purpose, because that's exactly what has happened. Is there's some pain to purpose that has happened in my life. So thank you for having me again.
I'm happy you're here, and I'm sorry my dog is in the background going a little funny, and it's all good. We love you
Life
and we love
happens,
you.
girl.
Life
Listen,
happens.
COVID has taught us to be flexible, okay?
COVID has taught us to be flexible, and that is exactly right. And it's all good. It is all good. Well, thank you for that introduction, for sharing. I think it's amazing that you are both a clinical psychologist with, people as well as in the schools, because we need it with our children. That's where a lot of these issues are starting, particularly, it could be as early as elementary school, really middle schools, where I see so much of these transitions and these pain points happening.
Or
So,
yeah, go ahead.
or what? No, go ahead. Or what? Were we
I
about
said those hormones, they start coming up, and then
That's right.
dealing with psychology, it's coming in. Go ahead.
That's right. That's right. Now, I want to hear you. I want you to share um, your personal story of healing
Okay,
and what that was like. And then I want to come back to dealing with children and what you see as an educator and as a counselor.
for sure. So before I jump into my story, I want to give you an acronym. And I don't know if anybody's taking notes or not, but I like to give this acronym when I talk about the gift of adversity. It's actually an acronym for the word gift. And the G in gift I like to talk about is grit. Because when you go through adversity, one thing that if you allow it to, will give you grit, which is courage and strength of character and tenacity. Anybody who's dealt with anything that has pulled you through a challenge, you will, if you allow it to, it will pull you into those areas. The next one is inspiration and awakening to purpose. And Kelli, you can speak to that. You went through something in your life, and here you are. You're walking in your purpose right now as a result of the adversity that you lived through.
Right.
Um, the F is faith. It's a complete confidence or conviction in something or someone. Sometimes it can be faith in yourself, which is what many of us need. We need to have faith in ourselves. And sometimes we don't get there until we go through something that challenges us to look in that mirror and say, who am I? Who am I? And sometimes it takes a challenge for us to face who we are. And the last is truth, which is honesty with ourselves and others. So that's definitely something I wanted to give to you as a sort of a foundation. To sort of propel you into my story. And it's two parts. The first has to do with the past, and the other is a more recent future, present. I mean, I want to read an excerpt from my book
Okay.
quickly, just because it gives a good foundation. It's not very long. The book is called Jump, Just Understand My Perspective, Addressing Situations That Drive People to the Edge. Whew. I was literally ready to jump out of a window. The pain I experienced was so heavy and deep that I could not see past it and felt like my life was over. On the outside, my life looked great. My husband and I had just bought a new home. We had a beautiful 2-year-old daughter. I was in my final year of grad school and was looking forward to starting my new career. Even with all of the outside trappings of success, the depression took over. At that time of my life, I had not engaged fully in the process of healing from a childhood trauma. This was a trauma that subversively defined my actions and my self-image. My outward projection was that of an overachiever. I worked hard, did well in school, was generous, and I was good to people. Behind closed doors, my thoughts punished me, and I was buried under guilt and shame. Because I was not dealing with the root of the issues, any fix I tried was only temporary, and needless to say, that was not enough. The night of my third and final suicide attempt, I went into our guest room where I would normally go to pray. My husband and daughter were both sound asleep. I stood at the far end of the room and ran full speed toward the window. My forehead barely touched it when I felt a hand push me to the floor. I immediately started crying and speaking in tongues. And God's voice said, "Your life is not over." This is what I call my semicolon moment. The semicolon is used as a symbol to represent the continuation of life after thoughts of suicide and death. It was the moment when I had to own the fact that my story was not over. I had to learn to not be defined by my pain, but to be refined by it. My biggest challenge was to grab everything before my semicolon moment and use it as fuel to drive me toward my purpose. The reason I shared that in this book, and I wasn't going to put it in there. I was not going to put that in there. My co-author said, Orma, you have to put it in there. It is extremely important that people understand your story and understand your pain. And I'm sharing this with you today because I was what you want to call a high functioning depressed person. Oftentimes when people think about depression, they think about someone who's sad and they're cheerful, they have a hard time functioning in society, they may not be able to keep a job, they're in the hospital, you have a picture of what depression looks like. That was me. I had a smile that could light up a room.
Wow.
Happy, joyful, volunteering here, doing that. As you can see, I was in grad school to be a counselor.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
I was married. We had just bought a house, had this beautiful daughter. But because I had not dealt with the trauma that I dealt with in the childhood outside of my home, and I always specify that because I had an amazing family, it kept creeping up on me. So I had to deal with it at some point. But at that time, I hadn't. And it really got to me. That was, like I said, the third time that I tried to take my own life. The first two times, actually, I was actively stopped by my boyfriend at the time. He actively stopped me from taking my own life.
How far apart were those instances?
So those two instances, let me see, this one was 2007. So those instances, right after I graduated college in 1995. So it was 1996 when those two instances were, and they were months apart. But I didn't get help. I went and got medication, didn't take it really, but I didn't get help because in my mind, I felt like I was okay. I'm fine, because I got over it and everything started looking better. And I felt like I was okay because I didn't understand in my mind what was really going on with me. Because again, my life was good. I was happy most days. And I really didn't understand at that time what was happening with me, right? But that night, after I looked at my baby and thought about my husband, the next day I talked to my husband and said, I need help. I had to tell him. That's when I realized that something was really wrong. So that's when I started my first path to therapy. And I tell people this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You may not hit it right with the first therapist, don't give up, because it took me 3 tries to find my therapist. Okay.
And sometimes it's not the first or second, like you just said, because it has to be a right fit that feels good and that where you feel heard and seen and listened to. I get that so completely.
And I'm glad you said that because, and please don't give up. I tell people I am a therapist and I know. And the first two just, it weren't right. I think part of it was me and my ego because I was in grad school and I thought I knew, but what happened for me was I did end up having to be on medication and my psychiatrist listened better than my first therapist. I was like, oh, she's good. Let me come talk to her. And I kept talking to her, right? But I eventually found a therapist, and I'll talk about her a little bit later because it's my second story where she came into play and she got me together.
Okay.
But I did make it through before I got to her, but it took a long time. So
you started seeing these signs and you had two ideations,
yes.
suicidal ideations in college or grad school, and then it came back 10 years later, or maybe it didn't come back. Maybe it was always there. I'd love to have you explain
the
that.
first sign was when my freshman year in college, I actually sat down and wrote a suicide note. That was the only time I ever wrote a note.
Wow.
I wrote a note, but I didn't attempt at that time. I sat down and I wrote a note, and I don't know what I did with it. To this day, I wish I would have kept it just so I can know what was in it, so I can know what was in my mind. But I wrote the note, and I'll never forget because it was April 1st, because I'm a Prince fan, and it was snowing. And I always think about sometimes it snows in April. I'm a Prince fan. But I don't know what I did with that note. I don't know where it is, but I remember that day writing it, and it's gone. I must have thrown it away. I must have ripped it up and threw it away because I thought it was like just a fleeting moment. But in retrospect, I can realize I was in pain then.
Right. And weren't dealing with it and didn't realize it, didn't know. And so you put on this face, this beautiful space with this beautiful smile, and which lights up the room. And you continue to walk in this deep, what did you just call it? You called it a veiled depression. or hidden
It's called
depression?
high functioning.
High functioning depression. So you were high functioning depression
Mhm.
in that state, and you think back as early as freshman year.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. That's when it surfaced, but it wasn't heavy. It wasn't until I was in my mid to late 20s that it got worse and it began to really manifest itself more and more, because that's when I really said, wow, something's wrong. So we kind of fast forward to, I guess I'd have to say, let's see, after grad school, I graduated. I was doing fine. Okay. I guess I can move into the second story now, because that's going to get me to kind of where I really feel better. I made it through all of that. I still had years where I dealt with high anxiety. That was the other thing too, because I dealt with a lot of anxiety. But I finished school and I became a therapist. So in 2016 is when I started working as a therapist, right? And I was fine. I started doing a lot better. Things were moving along the right path. I was doing pretty well. 2017 is when I started realizing that, I'm doing okay as a therapist, but I think I would do better if I got help, because I noticed that in my therapy practice, I would get triggered by some of my clients. So I got a referral for a trauma therapist. Okay, now I'm a therapist and I do have clients who deal with trauma and I'm able to help them, but I went to
Mhm.
a trauma specialist,
Wow.
and this woman has changed my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. How'd you find the trauma specialist?
Well, one of my colleagues referred me to her.
Okay, got it.
And
Okay.
when I tell you, what she did was she actually would sit me down. She actually sat me down, and first of all, she diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder. That was the first thing. So she identified what was going on with me and said, this is what's going on with you, and this is why. And what happens with post-traumatic stress disorder is there are things that I was experiencing in my life that would trigger a trauma response that I didn't notice and I didn't realize. Obviously, some of my clients would trigger me, and I would be fine in session. And that's one thing that God has graced me to be completely, fully present with my clients and not respond in session. I was able to give them what they need. But
That's great.
after they left, I would find myself chest tightening. Why am I crying? What's going on? What's happening? Not realizing what they
Mhm.
had just given me was a struggle.
We're internalizing too.
Internalize. And this was just within my first year. So
Mhm.
thankfully, it was my first year. I said, Orma, get some help, because you can't keep doing this. You cannot
Mhm.
keep like this. You're gonna have to be able to work with
Mhm.
individuals and be present with them and still be okay. So I went to her and she began to identify, first of all, that I had what was called, what is it called? Achievement-based self-worth. And I said, oh, that's what's going on. I felt like I had to be doing something and achieving something in order for me to be valuable in this world. And it connected back to a lot of things in my life. I was the golden child, and I was this, and I was that, and that, and that, and that. The income in conjunction with the trauma and other things. And it created this anxiety and this frustration and all of these expectations that honestly, I really eventually placed on myself. My family, my parents never really said those things to me. They never really put those things on me. I internalized them and placed them on myself. And it pushed me to a place where I felt like if I'm not doing and achieving, I'm not okay. And when I look back over my life, there were times when I was like, wow. At one point in high school, I had a planner and it was full to the T. I lost that planner and nearly thought I was going to die. Because why? What am I going to do next? What's supposed to happen next? And when I think back on that, it's absurd. But at the time, it made perfect sense to me, right? That's kind of where my mind was. So she did something one day that opened my eyes. She says, Orma, she was talking to me. And I was like, yeah, I thought I was talking to her and not telling on myself. I said, yeah. And you know what? Sometimes I go through there and I can't even sit down for 5 minutes to rest because I just get antsy. And she just said, she did this. Really? Okay. She let me finish talking. She said, okay, this is your homework assignment. I want you to go home and sit on your couch for 5 minutes and do nothing. I said, okay, I can do that. Right. I went home, sat on my couch, tried to sit down, and I couldn't sit still.
Right.
I
It's
looked around my
addicted to activity.
that's
Uh-huh.
That's a perfect way to say it. I sat down, I was like, oh, I gotta go dust that. What is that on under my TV? What is it on? I literally could not sit still. And it forced me to realize that you said it, was addicted to activity. So when I went back to my next session with my tail between my legs, I said, you are so right. And so what she helped me to do was to understand the importance of balance, to understand how to bring peace into my life, to understand how to redefine my self-worth, to understand the role of epigenetics. I don't know if you guys know what epigenetics is, but it's generational trauma, to understand all of these things in my life. And so today, August 13th, 2023, I know how to rest. I know how to live with anxiety without anxiety. When I tell you I used to have social anxiety. As friendly as I am, I cannot go and be in big crowds. I love the African World Festival. Love it. Would have to like go through this ritual just to get myself through those crowds. I'm cool now. My daughters are dancers. They will go to the palace. I'm saying the palace. I'm dating myself. Woo, Little Caesars Arena. And they would dance. They danced 3 times at Little Caesars Arena. I didn't, the first 2 times I never saw them because I was anxious. You best believe the last time they went, I saw them, right? Because I was healed from that anxiety.
That's wonderful.
Exactly. So it was all of that stuff that I had to deal with, but it took her to put everything in perspective for me, to help me to redefine my self-worth, but also to manage the anxiety and to kind of work through that trauma. We also worked through the trauma that I dealt with as a child. So that was a big part of it too. It's her helping me to work through, because I was molested as a child by I was 9 and I was molested by my 15-year-old older cousin. And it caused me to become sexually active at a young age and very promiscuous and just exposed to a lot of different things. And a lot of my self-worth was wrapped up in that as well. So that did a number on me and kind of pushed me down a different path as well. And it affected me in a lot of ways. And to this day, talk about healing, he and I are cool. Like I see him in the streets, we hug each other, we talk.
Really? You forgave him?
Yes. Oh, let me tell you about that.
Yes, please.
Because he still lives in the same neighborhood that I grew up in, and I'm there all the time because my parents are still there. And I would see him even before he and I actually acknowledged and talked about it. I went back and taught at the school in my old neighborhood. His daughter went to that same school. So I'm downstairs dismissing my students. He would come up to me every day and stand next to me and we would chat it up. So one day he looked at me and says, Tina, that's my neighborhood name. Tina, we sit here every day, we're talking, and I just had to say something to you. He says, I'm sorry for what I did to you a long time ago. And I looked at him and called him by his name and I said, I appreciate you for apologizing, but I forgave you a long time ago.
Wow.
And when I tell you, it took everything in him to keep from falling on that floor and crying. But that moment was amazing. And from that moment forward, every time we saw each other, hugged each other. I used to frequent a place where he worked. We would see each other, we could speak, right? We were fine. I would give him rides to work here and there. I was healed. Right? I am healed.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful because everyone doesn't get that gift. Everyone doesn't get that ability to do that. And because I have the capacity and the healing, I can work with my clients who deal with it, not to minimize their pain, but to help them understand it is possible to heal from something like that. No, they may not have the same experience I have, and I understand that, but I have the capacity to say, you can heal from this. You can heal from dealing, because he wasn't the only person who molested me. There were 2 other men who did. They both have passed away. But it is possible for it to happen. Go ahead, you have a question.
I was just saying, when you said there were 2 other people that passed away. I'm sorry, I had an audible. I try to stay on mute because I'm often
that's fine. No.
adding and commenting. I am so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
You were 9 and then, I imagine teenager. And no one should have to go through that. But what I find so amazing is the ability for you to forgive, and you forgave your 15-year-old cousin even before he apologized.
Yeah. I
That's
had
amazing.
I had to, and I tell people all the time, the forgiveness was for me and not for him. It was because I couldn't hold on to it. Holding on to that would have hurt me more than anything. But then being able to tell him he was forgiven, that was the gift to him because he needed to know that. Because I could tell he was holding on to it.
That's right.
We were kids. We were kids. So
And
yeah.
that part right there, we were kids.
Yep.
And so I know you had a personal, I shared, I'm just going to share for people who may see me often on camera and jumping around and the dog barking and all kinds of stuff. Had a little drama this morning with some sort of electrical issue and smoke, and everything is perfectly fine. And yet 2 minutes before the call, there were 7 fire trucks here, people everywhere. And I'm like, what is happening? So the dog has finally calmed down and things are calm, and it's all good and everything is good, but just sharing. That's why you may have seen things looking a little different, a little hairy this morning. But I want to ask you a question, Orma, about, you opened up by talking about you do counseling in schools and you help children. What are you seeing the most in terms of the topic we're talking about today, trauma and pain, and how do you help? Because many of us on the call are parents, or we have loved ones that we might be helping or wanting to heal, or ourselves. So the question is two parts. One, what are you seeing the most in terms of pain or challenges or mental wellness challenges? And then two, what kind of advice would you give in your school counseling or school therapist hat of how we could help our young people or our
So
loved ones?
So most of what I do with students in schools is related to college counseling, but I'm gonna say this, when I'm doing mentoring in schools, a lot of these kids, a lot of them deal with relationship challenges. And I work with high schools when it comes to that, not younger kids. These kids are, so one, relationships with their parents and trying to be heard, trying to be seen, trying to develop their identity of who they are, but also romantic relationships. These kids have the most complicated relationship lives at 13 and 14 years old.
Wow.
And they are, not all of them are sexually active, not all of them are, but some of them are. And because of social media has created a world where these kids feel free to express things about themselves that they normally would not. And it creates challenges for them that can be devastating. And so they feel pressure. They feel the pressure to fit in. They feel the pressure to be a certain way. They feel the pressure to look a certain way, the pressure to do certain things, the pressure to try certain things. And the peer pressure is different than it was when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, when you were 12, 13, 14 years old. So one thing that I would, so then you turn around and you get the self-harm, the cutting, right? You get the let me experiment with this drug and experiment with smoking, experiment with that. Because I must be honest with you, it's very easy for them to get access to drugs nowadays. It's so easy.
Right, in the bathrooms,
There
as
it is.
my now college student, my eldest, told me. He's like, well, of course. I said, have you tried pills? And he said, of course, they're everywhere. I said, what do you mean they're everywhere? He said, in the bathroom in high school. And then he said, actually in junior high school. I said, in the bathroom? He said, yeah. So they're there everywhere.
Edibles are now so common. And that's one thing. When my youngest daughter started, before she went to sixth grade, I was in a car with her, my oldest daughter who's 17, and a couple of their friends. And I said, listen, and I said, let's have a talk. And that's the one thing we talked about. I said, don't take any food from anybody. I pack your lunch every day. You don't take any snacks from anybody, because, and let me tell you why. We start talking about edibles, talk about marijuana, talk about weed, because these kids are overdosing on edibles. Some of them are intentionally taking them. Some of them are overdosing unknowingly, because these kids are trying them, one, to experiment, two, to numb themselves, because these kids are dealing with anxiety.
That's right. And they have, we like you mentioned, social media They have everything in their hand all day long. Bullying, visualization, like you said, of people that are, that they're admiring that are not really admirable necessarily. And then all of the hate and it's just so much right here. Whereas at least when we were in school, the bully was at school, it might chase you home, but by the time you get in your house, it was a safe space. But you come in your house, you still have your phone 24/7. So I hear you on that.
One thing I would recommend as a parent is to not be afraid to have tough conversations with your kids. Don't be embarrassed about having those conversations with your kids. It may be uncomfortable, but you'd rather be uncomfortable than to have them get caught up in something that they can't get out of or that will be difficult to get out of. Have those tough conversations. My kids look at me, Mama, ew, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, that's fine. But we're going to talk about it. Right? I think it's important that we as parents allow ourselves to get into the words, because my parents didn't talk about stuff like they didn't talk about sex. They didn't talk about drugs with me. They didn't talk about those things with me. As a result, I'm not going to blame them, but I wasn't prepared. Right. I was exposed to it in ways that I shouldn't have been. Right. So I think it's important that you, if they do have a device, that you have blocks on it, that you monitor it, that you check it, and don't let them say, this is mine, it's my privacy. No, you have a right to know what's going on in their world. Pay attention. My youngest daughter dealt with bullying. So I would take her phone and I would look through it. Thankfully, I noticed that she was not folding to peer pressure. I read through her text and I was like, oh, I was proud of her. Oh, okay, yeah, you do. Okay, good. You turning them down. So I was able to see that. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Right. So it's important that you feel okay. But yes, they should have some level of privacy. There are some things you don't jump into, but sometimes you need to know what's going on in their world, because literally they have access to everything at their fingertips. And it is our job to protect them from that. So that's one of the biggest things, is them really feeling the pressure to fit in, feeling the pressure to be something they're not, or to try things that they probably shouldn't. That's a big part of it. But these relationships, these kids are sometimes in adult relationships, and you're just like, wait a minute, you only 14. What are you talking about?
Absolutely. And then the music glorifies it or makes it even, they'll be 12, 13 talking about things that, many of us didn't know about, don't know about still, even as adults. So I hear you on that. So thank you for answering that question. I want to go back to you and your story. And I know that you have you've already shared so much, and you've also overcome about with cancer, breast cancer.
So,
So can you share that and how have you healed and are you in recovery? And please share that story with us.
I think and it's going to be odd for you to hear me say this, but the cancer was the least of the struggle, believe it or not.
Mhm.
I so as you all know, um it's recommended that women get mammograms every year starting at the age of 40. So, and I did that. I was faithful. I posted on Facebook, ladies, get your mammograms, get your mammograms. I would go. So in 2021, my mammogram was scheduled, and I got sick, so I had to cancel it. So I rescheduled the mammogram. It came time for me to get the mammogram, and my baby sister passed away suddenly. So I had to cancel that mammogram. When things kind of calmed down after, the funeral and everything, I rescheduled the mammogram. And it's like, okay, came time for me to go through that mammogram again. My best friend passed away. And I was like, okay, cancel that one. And I never rescheduled. So 2021, I did not get a mammogram for the first time in years, like for the first time since I was 40 years old. And it was a rough year. I lost my baby sister, my best friend, in a matter of 2 months. And it was really rough. So in February of 2022, I was doing a self-exam and I found a lump, a really large lump in my breast. Excuse me. And so I immediately grabbed my phone, had scheduled an appointment with Henry Ford, Cancer Pavilion. And I showed up. I showed up for that mammogram. I made sure I went to that one because I was like, okay, we're not taking any chances. And I get to the cancer pavilion, I get the mammogram. They saw that lump and another one behind it. They immediately called for ultrasound. I went across the hall for the ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech is, I love to talk. Obviously, as you can see, I love to talk. I'm very friendly. She and I are talking the whole time. All of a sudden, she stops mid-sentence, and she's still moving the wand and clicking on the screen, moving the wand and clicking. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, she sees something else. And we're like, okay, I'm just sitting there, keeping my head together. She hands me a towel and says, okay, Miss Smith, clean yourself up. I'm gonna go get the doctor. So she gets the doctor. The doctor says, okay, so we're seeing something on your results. We're going to send you over for biopsies. So I get the biopsies, and about a few days later, I get my cancer diagnosis on my lunch break in between clients. And I do not like to cancel my clients because they need me, one, and I just don't feel like they deserve that, especially last minute. So I turned on some worship music and I cried and I prayed. And I kind of released that first wave of emotion. Went to the bathroom, washed my face, and I picked up my next client, right? And I had the capacity to be present, completely present for my clients and get through that day. And when I tell people this next part of the story, I think it's hard for them to understand, but I was not scared. I wasn't afraid of dying. That wasn't my emotion. I was angry. And the reason that I was angry was because cancer runs in my family. And so I prayed about it, prayed against cancer, changed my diet, changed my lotion, changed my deodorant, changed my soap. I did all this stuff. And I was like, okay, God, what is this? What you doing? What are you doing? So I had to deal with that level and layer of emotion. Once I got finished throwing, go ahead, Kelli.
No, I'm just, yes, I hear you. That's,
I got finished throwing that tantrum. Right. Fast forward. And one night I'm lying in my bed, and I wasn't going to tell anybody. I wasn't going to tell anybody that I had cancer except for my immediate family, few friends, people at church, were people who I felt needed to know, because I had to have a mastectomy. I had to have my left breast removed as a result of it, right? So I'm thinking I need help, right? I am, okay. So here's the thing. I'm a helper. I'm that person who does for people. I'm there for you, but I have a hard time receiving help. So I said, okay, my parents need to know, my family needs to know, my best friend, I'm gonna tell people at church, my coworkers need to know, okay. But everybody else doesn't really need to know that I have cancer. And even saying the words now sounds absurd, right? But that's where my mind was as I was going through this. Well, I'm lying in bed one night, and I couldn't sleep. I had a hard time sleeping. I was restless. And so the week before, my pastor had done an apostolic briefing, which every week he goes on Facebook Live, and he begins to speak of what he hears from heaven. And he said the words, "My life is a platform for the glory of God." And I kept hearing those words. And I'm like, okay. So I grabbed my phone and I typed them in my phone and put the phone down, saying, okay, I can go to sleep now. Nope. I kept hearing them. I said, okay, God, what is this? And then I hear, tell the story. I was like, okay. So I sit up and I type out a Facebook post. And in Facebook post, I mentioned the date of my diagnosis, the date of my surgery. And I talk about the fact that I know that I'm going to need some assistance. I have to swallow my pride. I know that I'm healed. I know that I'm whole. An inspirational message. After I post this message, I get hundreds of comments under the message in my inbox, text messages of people who were inspired by the message. But what touched me the most were the people who reached out, and I'm choking back tears, who reached out saying, Orma, I've never got a mammogram before and I'm scared. Can I call you? Or, Orma, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and reading your message has inspired me and encouraged me.
Yeah.
One after another of people who were touched by me opening my mouth and sharing my story.
That's right.
Exactly. And so me sitting in my pride and not wanting to share would have been a problem, right? Because God was telling me, you are not going through, this is not about you. This is
Mm,
This is for you to help other people. So in the year and a half since my diagnosis,
mm,
I've been able to minister to so
mm,
many people and help so many people get through their situations. And I'm
right.
so thankful, for one, that I didn't have to have chemotherapy. I didn't have
Mm,
to have radiation, right? I did have to have two surgeries. I had the surgery for the mastectomy and then reconstruction for the other side so that I could, be even.
mm,
And I'm dealing with some, side effects from the medication, whatever. I'm good. I'm
You're
But my
here.
story is that my journey has been one that's been able to help other people.
Right.
Dealing with this, my therapist helped me because my baby sister, my best friend,
Mm,
would be the people who would be helping me through this. And
right.
my here, right?
Mm,
Me having my therapist in the midst of this, she has been pivotal in helping me through
right.
this. My husband, pivotal in helping me through this, but also me being able to pour into and help other people.
Mm,
Dealing with this adversity, dealing with this challenge has pushed me to purpose,
yes.
pushed me to be able to dig into a strength that I didn't know that I had. It's
Mm-hmm.
a place where I was able to say, okay, Oma, you can go through these things because I had to sit on my couch for 6 weeks. I couldn't sleep in my bed for
Mm,
6 weeks by myself. There were times my husband was at work, my kids were at school, and I'm in this house all by myself. Just, well, okay, can't do nothing, couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't
right.
clean, couldn't do anything but sit and think.
Mm,
Right.
mm,
So I
mm.
really had to do some soul searching.
Yeah.
There were some tough moments. And so what did I do? I began to reflect, and I used social media as I would begin to reflect, and I would share. I would say, hey, I'm having a great day today. This is what's going on. And people will respond, right? And
Mm,
it was a way for me to help people understand, because people always see me and think of me as, oh, she's always happy, her life's great, everything's great. No, life
right.
is life isn't great. This is what's going on with me today, but this is how I'm dealing with it,
Mm, right.
how I'm framing it. This is
Right.
how I'm learning from it.
How I'm dealing with it, how I'm framing it, and how I'm learning from it. That's so good. And ultimately, that you said, my life is a magnaphone for the glory of God. Is that
My life
what you
is a
said?
platform. My life is a platform.
Platform.
Yep. That was my
Platform.
pastor. Those were his words. My life is a platform for the glory of God. And when he said, and it's so important because it centered me. That's why it kept coming to me,
Yes.
because I had to stop being selfish and pouty. I was being a little brat. I was being a brat.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm,
gonna go through this. Well, you know what? You're going through it because it's not about
mhm.
you.
Right. Right.
It's about the people who you're going to be able to help. Because
That's right. It's
this
the
was something I knew I
future.
was gonna be okay.
Mhm,
I was never afraid of death. And I knew I wasn't going to die. I knew, but I just
mhm,
didn't want to be dealing with it, right? So then
mhm.
you're dealing with it for a reason.
That's right. And the adversity you talk about being a gift, the
Mhm.
adversity of that, and how you're able to transition from that pain and uncertainty to this purposeful place where you're able to help so many people and be open with your journey. Because I do believe in the power of sharing and being vulnerable and being open. And I think also how God sat you on that couch for 6 months. And when you're addicted to activity and you're used to, having every second of every day filled to beyond capacity, then it's
Girl,
hard to be still. It's hard. And so I also think nothing is happenstance. It all is divine. So I want to just first also say I'm so sorry about your best friend and your baby sister. And that the story about 2021 and your breast exam. And then you had these two deaths, which caused you not to have one for the first time.
right,
It's
right.
just all interwoven,
Yeah.
which led you to today speaking so beautifully and helping so many others work through that pain and also through what they might be dealing with their families and their children. It's just a powerful story. So thank you for sharing. Absolutely. I want to make sure that if people have a question for Orma this morning, you can come off of mute by hitting *6, or you can type a question in the chat. I think it's such a powerful and beautiful message around your acronym GIFT, which I would love for you to repeat because I had fire trucks here when that was all happening. So if you can please repeat, I heard grit.
So grits, which is courage, strength of character, and tenacity.
Yeah.
Inspiration and awakening to purpose, creativity, and moving from hope, which is moving from apathy to possibility.
Yes. Okay.
Faith, complete confidence or conviction in someone or something, and truth, honesty with yourself and others.
Got it. Grit, inspiration, faith, and truth, correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I want to put it in the chat for people. And if anyone has a question or comment, please feel free. Orma, you have really blessed me this morning. Does anyone else want to ask a question or have a comment for Orma today? Oh, I want to also ask your book. Can you hold up your book cover and tell us where we can purchase it? I saw your book. Yeah, there it is. Jump. Okay. Is it available on Amazon or on your website?
It is available. Oh, it's also available on my website, ormasmithconsulting.com.
Okay.
Put that in the chat.
I will put that. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Any questions from anyone this morning or any comments or thoughts for
I
Orma?
do have a comment.
Yeah, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm just being inspired. I don't have any questions as much as an appreciation for you taking the time to really talk to us about this. One of the benefits of SonRise is always being able to hear stories and to really focus on how to do better and how to have more patience and how to have more gratitude. And I just want to say that you've done that this morning for me as I'm in the midst of adversity, as is everyone else. It just really kind of hones in the focus on gratitude and looking for the blessings in every trial and tribulation. So to that, I just say thank you.
I agree completely. And I see a note as well. So thank you for sharing that. And also a note that says your resilience is awesome. Thank you. I agree completely. Resilience is such a powerful word. And that's exactly what it is. You represent and you showcase. And I think also the fact that you really talked about being depressed. You talked about your semicolon moment, but being depressed and showing this beautiful face all the time. I think there's something just to note there, because many of us go through life, go through the day, go through a house guest overnight. I was up whipping up breakfast before the fire happened, all of this stuff with a smile. And yet behind that, there's often so many other things happening. And so we need to often, I think, pause and acknowledge all those feelings and speak about them. And so we can get the help we need. Yeah, it's really important because living with that beautiful smile, my best Facebook forward. I always say it's my best Facebook forward. People put out all the rah-rah, but when it's often not all of that, very few people say, I'm really struggling today. I'm having a tough time with X. So any thoughts on that piece, putting your best face forward versus what you did for those 6 months on the couch or 6 weeks on the couch? You shared your truth.
I always tell people, burn the cape. People always talk about the Superwoman syndrome. I've got rid of that cape a long time ago. And I finally learned, and this time, especially to learn to ask for help. Like literally, you talked about. I love how you put it. That sitting on that couch, it taught me to learn how to ask for help. My other best friend asked me before my surgery, "Can I come clean your house?" Before this, I would have been like, "Girl, no, you ain't coming to clean my house." But I said yes without thinking about it and let her come and clean my house because I knew that I would not be able to clean my house. Right.
And accepting the help is hard for someone like you. And I think because that's someone like me.
Very
So
much
accepting the help. I'm gonna say, nope, I got it. No, I'm good. So that's a wonderful thing. There's this book, The Little Book of Big Lies by Tina Lifford. And then there's also these 14 practices. I'll show you the book. It's a great book. And in fact, I'll send you one because I have some extras, but this book right here, and then these 14 practices, one of them, the first one says, I turn my life over to a force greater than me that loves me in response to my heart. And then the number 2 point, which you just said, I ask for its assistance with everything I do. And I accept assistance when needed. And we have to learn to do that always. So important. So I just appreciate I appreciate you being here. I want to encourage all of us um, to purchase the book, Jump. I put the link to the Amazon purchase and I also in the chat. And I also put ormasmithconsulting.com for Orma's website. Are you taking new clients and do you do virtual sessions?
I do virtual sessions. I have very, very few slots left, but reach out to me and I definitely have an excellent referral list.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, that's really, really wonderful. Well, I know, are there any additional pieces that we missed or anything else you want to share with our village this morning?
I think we covered everything.
I think so too. You're amazing. So appreciate you and what you're doing to help heal people, help heal the world. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for you being here and thank you for your grace with everything that was happening this morning behind the scenes. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. And thank you to Tiara for introducing us and for you saying yes and for you being here early this morning on our call. It's such a gift to have people come share their stories, as one of our callers mentioned earlier. So I appreciate it. And Gigi and I are going to turn it over. Gigi's the dog that you hear barking. We are going to turn it over to Tiara, who will close us out in a prayer this morning. And again, thank you so much.
So God, we thank you. We thank you for another Sunrise Sunday. We thank you again for Kelli and family for providing this platform. We thank you for Orma Smith for sharing her very inspiring story of trial and triumph. God, we thank you for the gift of adversity. We pray for a mindset shift to even see adversity as the gift that it is. Lord, we pray for increased measures of faith that allow us to believe that all is well despite any challenges we may be facing. We pray that each person on this call begins to reflect on how their life can be a platform for the glory of God. Father God, we give you thanks. We pray your blessing, your protection, your peace over every single person on this call. May they have a powerful, positive, productive, and peaceful week in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And yes, a powerful, peaceful, and purposeful week. I am for all of that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back next Sunday at 9 a.m. And thank you, Orma Smith, for sharing your beautiful story and for helping so many others. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back next Sunday. Thank you so much.